Chapter 11, The Sleeping Giant Wakes, America's Entry and the War's Global Balance. For 3 agonizing years, the Great War had consumed Europe in a maelstrom of industrialized death, while across the Atlantic, a burgeoning economic and industrial power remained ostensibly neutral. The United States, a land of immigrants with ties to every belligerent nation, clung to its isolationist traditions, believing itself immune to the old world's entanglements. This was the big lie of detachment, a comforting illusion that would ultimately prove unsustainable. As the conflict escalated, its tendrils reached across the ocean, pulling the reluctant giant into the fray. America's awakening in 1917 irrevocably altered the global balance, providing the exhausted Allies with fresh blood, vast resources, and a moralistic purpose that would define the war's end and the problematic peace that followed. America's reluctant dance, from neutrality to intervention. President Woodrow Wilson had won re-election in 1916 on the slogan, "He kept us out of war." Yet, beneath the surface of official neutrality, powerful forces were steadily drawing the United States towards intervention. The dollar diplomacy, economic ties that pulled America eastward. While technically neutral, America's economic leanings were unmistakably pro-Allied. Britain and France, with their dominant naval power, controlled the Atlantic shipping lanes, effectively blocking trade with the Central Powers. Consequently, American exports of food, raw materials, and manufactured goods flowed almost exclusively to the Entente. More crucially, American banks and financiers extended massive loans and credits to the Allied powers, amounting to billions of dollars. By 1917, the Allies owed American institutions far more than the Central Powers. This dollar diplomacy created a powerful vested interest. If the Allies lost, these immense debts might never be repaid, threatening a catastrophic economic collapse in the U.S. Thus, even during its period of neutrality, America became the indispensable arsenal of democracy and the financial backbone of the Allied war effort. This economic entanglement created a subtle, yet powerful, gravitational pull away from strict neutrality and towards eventual intervention. The Lusitania's legacy, a sinking ship and shifting public opinion. The burgeoning economic ties were not enough to overcome America's deep-seated isolationism. However, German actions at sea began to erode public tolerance. On May 7, 1915, a German U-boat torpedoed the British passenger liner RMS Lusitania off the coast of Ireland. The ship sank in just 18 minutes, killing 1,198 people, including 128 Americans. The sinking of the Lusitania, despite German warnings that the ship was carrying munitions, ignited a firestorm of outrage in the United States. It was perceived as an act of barbarism, a direct attack on innocent civilians and the principle of freedom of the seas. While President Wilson refrained from declaring war, the incident profoundly shifted American public opinion against Germany, exposing the big lie of civilian immunity in naval warfare and revealing the brutal realities of unrestricted submarine tactics. Germany, under intense U.S. diplomatic pressure, temporarily suspended unrestricted submarine warfare to avoid drawing America into the conflict, but the seed of anger had been sown. The Zimmermann telegram, the secret message that sealed a fate. By early 1917, Germany, facing strategic deadlock and severe economic strain from the Allied blockade, made a desperate gamble to win the war by unleashing its U-boats in a final, decisive push. However, before resuming unrestricted submarine warfare, it made one last, catastrophic diplomatic blunder, the Zimmermann telegram. In January 1917, German Foreign Secretary Arthur Zimmermann sent a coded telegram to the German ambassador in Mexico. The message proposed a military alliance between Germany and Mexico in the event of U.S. entry into the war. In exchange for Mexico's cooperation, Germany promised financial support and assistance in reclaiming lost territory in Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Crucially, the telegram was intercepted and decoded by British naval intelligence, Room 40, to be discussed later. Recognizing its explosive potential, the British deliberately leaked it to the American press in March 1917. The revelation caused a massive wave of anti-German fury across the U.S., uniting public opinion in a way no previous event had. It was undeniable proof of Germany's hostile intentions against American sovereignty, sealing the fate of U.S. neutrality. Unrestricted warfare, Germany's fatal gamble. Despite the risks of American intervention, Germany believed its desperate situation warranted the gamble. In January 1917, it announced the resumption of unrestricted submarine warfare, knowing it would inevitably draw the U.S. into the conflict. The German High Command calculated that it could defeat Britain by starving it out within 6 months, cutting off its vital food and supply lines, before the United States could effectively mobilize, train, and deploy significant forces to the Western Front. This was Germany's final, desperate attempt to win the war, and it proved to be the decisive casus belli for the United States. The sinking of American merchant ships and the direct threat to American lives and commerce became intolerable. The big lie of strategic invincibility inherent in this gamble proved to be Germany's undoing. Wilson's crusade, making the world safe for democracy. Faced with overwhelming public pressure, the threat of economic ruin from Allied defeat, and Germany's direct provocations, President Woodrow Wilson finally bowed to the inevitable. On April 2, 1917, he addressed a joint session of Congress, requesting a declaration of war against Germany. Wilson, a former academic and an idealist, framed America's entry not merely as a response to German aggression, but as a moral imperative. He declared that the world must be made safe for democracy. This idealistic, moralistic rhetoric elevated the conflict beyond narrow national interests to a global crusade for universal values. It served as a powerful, big lie that energized the American public and would profoundly shape post-war diplomacy, particularly through Wilson's 14 points, setting out a vision for a new, democratic world order, free from secret treaties and imperialistic ambitions. The Yanks Are Coming, how fresh blood changed everything. America's entry instantly transformed the global balance of power, yet its impact was not immediate. The sleeping giant needed time to fully awaken and mobilize its vast potential. Training a nation, the rapid mobilization of the AEF. When the U.S. declared war, its standing army was remarkably small, numbering just over 200,000 men. Building a massive fighting force capable of fighting a modern war was an enormous, unprecedented challenge. The Selective Service Act, conscription, was quickly implemented, rapidly swelling the ranks. Under the leadership of General John J. Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Forces, AEF, millions of raw recruits had to be rapidly trained, equipped, and, crucially, transported across the Atlantic through U-boat-infested waters. This was a colossal logistical undertaking, requiring the construction of new training camps, factories to produce uniforms and weapons, and ships to transport them. It took almost a year for significant numbers of American forces, affectionately known as Doughboys, to arrive on the Western Front, a period during which the Allies teetered on the brink. Doughboys in the trenches, the impact on Allied morale and strategy. By the spring and summer of 1918, as Germany launched its desperate spring offensive, American troops began to pour into France in ever-increasing numbers, eventually reaching over 2 million by the armistice. Their arrival provided a crucial psychological and military boost to the exhausted and demoralized Allied armies. Untainted by years of brutal trench warfare, the Americans brought a youthful vigor, a fresh perspective, and an offensive mindset that reinvigorated the stalemated front. Strategically, their sheer numerical strength tipped the manpower balance decisively against the Central Powers, who were already suffering from years of attrition and facing increasing desertions. American forces played key roles in crucial battles of 1918, including Belleau Wood, Château-Thierry, and the massive Meuse-Argonne offensive, contributing significantly to the Allied counteroffensives that ultimately broke the German lines and pushed them towards collapse. The Yanks were indeed coming, and their presence signaled the beginning of the end for the Central Powers. The unsung players. How neutral nations navigated the storm. Amidst the global conflagration, a handful of nations managed to maintain their neutrality, a precarious and often painful balancing act that required immense diplomatic skill and national resilience. Their experiences highlight that even staying out of the fight came at a steep cost. Spain, Switzerland, Scandinavia, the delicate balance of staying out. Spain, plagued by internal political instability and deep social divisions, remained neutral but suffered significant economic hardship. Its limited trade was disrupted, and its population, weakened by wartime privations, was particularly susceptible to the devastating impact of the Spanish flu, which tragically earned its name due to Spain's uncensored reporting of the disease. Switzerland, geographically surrounded by belligerents, performed an extraordinary feat of diplomatic tightrope walking. It maintained strict armed neutrality, providing humanitarian aid through the International Red Cross, headquartered in Geneva, acting as an intermediary for prisoner exchanges, and facilitating communication between warring parties. However, it faced immense economic pressure and internal divisions, with German-speaking cantons often sympathetic to the Central Powers and French-speaking ones to the Allies. The Scandinavian nations, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, also maintained their neutrality, but at considerable cost. Their merchant fleets, vital for trade, suffered heavy losses from both German U-boats and Allied mines. They faced constant pressure from both sides to align with their economic blockades, forcing them to make delicate compromises. All three nations experienced economic disruption and internal social unrest due to shortages and wartime conditions. These neutral nations, despite avoiding direct combat, were profoundly affected by the war, their big lie of isolation proving to be a fragile and often costly illusion. Spies and codes, the secret war beneath the surface. Beyond the battlefields and the home fronts, a silent, invisible war of wits, deception, and betrayal raged beneath the surface, shaping strategic decisions and altering the course of campaigns. Room 40's triumph, Britain's code-breaking masterminds. The Great War saw the birth of modern signals intelligence. Britain's top-secret naval intelligence unit, Room 40 of the Admiralty, proved particularly successful. Its brilliance lay in its ability to intercept and decode German naval and diplomatic communications, often aided by captured German codebooks from sunk or scuttled ships. Room 40's intelligence provided crucial insights into German naval movements, influencing British fleet deployments, though their intelligence was not fully exploited at Jutland, as discussed in Chapter 7. Its most famous triumph was the interception and decoding of the Zimmermann telegram, which, as discussed, proved instrumental in bringing the United States into the war. Room 40's work was a quiet, intellectual war fought by academics and linguists, yet its revelations had profound material consequences on the highest levels of strategy and diplomacy. Whispers and sabotage, the unseen hands of espionage. Espionage networks flourished on all sides, engaged in gathering intelligence, spreading disinformation, and conducting acts of sabotage. Agents operated in neutral countries, attempting to influence policy or disrupt enemy supply lines. Figures like the exotic dancer Mata Hari, famously executed by the French as a German spy, though her actual effectiveness as a double agent is still debated, became symbolic of the clandestine world of espionage, a blend of glamour and danger. German agents attempted sabotage in the neutral United States, notably the Black Tom explosion in 1916, which destroyed a massive munitions depot in New Jersey, causing millions of dollars in damage. While individual spy cases rarely had a decisive impact on the overall war, the constant threat of infiltration, the pervasive atmosphere of suspicion, and the occasional strategic intelligence coup added another layer of complexity to the conflict. This secret war, conducted away from public view, reinforced the big lie of a clear-cut conflict, shaping events through unseen hands and hidden agendas.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please don't forget to like, comment and share this video. Also don't forget to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon, so that you don't miss out the next video. For now, you can continue with the next video or can go through the complete playlist provided here.